So he went onto this show, and I guess the subject of you versus George St. Pierre came up, and this is kind of what he had to say about the prospective fight.
Why have a champion at all? I mean, it just set up great fights. And if you're just setting up great fights, well, that's a great fight. You know, Bisping versus GSP is a great fight. But if you're going to have a title, this is the champion of the world, then the champion should be defending his title against the number one challenger in the world. And that right now is Yoel Romero. But
100%.
More people by far know who George St. Pierre is and Yoel Romero, so Michael Bisping will make more money. It's a lucrative fight for George St. Pierre to come back to. I think WME and whatever this, I mean, what do they call the company now? Do they still call it Zuffa? I should probably know this, huh? Work for them.
What does your check say when you get it?
I don't look at it.
Yeah, I think it's Zuffa.
I think he's got direct deposit on that.
Yeah, I'm busy, but I think that look, there's two ways I look at it. One, I look at it like, man, I can't wait to see what happens. George St. Pierre versus Michael Bisping, yeah, I'm down. If that was on pay-per-view, 100% I would buy that.
Yeah.
Like if I was just sitting at home and you told me that Bisping was going to fight George St. Pierre tonight, I'd be like, all right, this is great. Get the popcorn. Let's get the party started.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Like, well, first of all, that was the 5 Rounds podcast on ESPN. Okay. So yeah, that was kind of his insight, and it's not. He wasn't a diss so much, but I think he was just kind of talking about the hierarchy of the sport, and this has turned into a sport. The UFC spent so long making it into a sport, and now it seems to be like they're contradicting themselves.
Yeah, well, Joe's contradicting himself as well. Listen, I respect Joe. Joe's a very smart man, and he's very learned on the subject of mixed martial arts and the UFC. He's been around forever. He knows the sport. But as I say, he kind of contradicted himself. He's like, well, why have title fights? But then he says, I for sure would get the popcorn and buy this pay-per-view. See, to become a champion, you have to pay your dues, which I did for a long time. When you become the champion, it changes because now it's only a very small portion, but you get a portion of the pay-per-view. You don't get that when you're not the champion. Now I'm the champion, I get a small portion of the pay-per-view. Now, every single fight that you have, there's a possibility you're going to lose that fight. So you want to maximize that potential. You want the fights to be as big as possible. So it's going to be as big as possible, but in terms of credibility as well, that has to be a factor. Now, with George St. Pierre coming back, I feel like I'm trying to justify a point that I've said a million times. But Joe actually just said there himself he would buy the fight himself. He 100% would buy it. So therefore, there goes my argument. And he also said later on that he doesn't believe me when I say I'll do a quick turnaround. Because the thing is, I'm not trying to avoid Yoel Romero. That is not my intention here. When I fought Dan Henderson, and I've said this before on the show, they offered me that fight and I took the fight. Now, they've offered me George St. Pierre. I'll tell you, the reason I did talk about wanting that fight with George St. Pierre, that was only because originally Dana offered me that fight back in October. I never even thought about a fight with George St. Pierre had Dana not offered me that fight. Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. But he put that in my head. But that's why I said, listen, I will do a quick turnaround and fight George St. Pierre. And Joe Rogan saying that that's crazy, that's ludicrous. Well, actually, it's not. It's not crazy. It's not ludicrous. And it's not beyond the realms of imagination because George St. Pierre, in many ways, is the perfect warm-up fight for Yoel Romero because they've got very similar styles. Yes, Yoel is bigger and Yoel hits harder, but they're both got fantastic wrestling. They're both shorter guys than me. There is many similarities.
They're both hard to understand.
They're both hard to understand, and slowly but surely both turning into cocksuckers. So, so if I do that, if I fight George St. Pierre, I'm pretty confident in not getting hurt in that fight. Of course, if I get hurt, that changes everything. But if I don't get hurt, then say we fight, I don't know when it is. Let's say UFC 215 for argument's sake, UFC 217. I'll do it.
Well,
I'll do it because I don't want all the work I've done, all the wrestling work that I've done. I don't want that. I don't want to get rusty in that regard.
Well, that was the point that they had made in the ESPN clip. They were like, oh, well, you think Michael Bisping's going to get this huge multi-million-dollar payday and then just the next day turn around, get back into a camp. But what you're saying is it wouldn't even be that. You would, at that point, you kind of getting out of camp and then taking a break would be more detrimental toward your training toward Romero as opposed to jumping right back in.
So here's the thing. If we do, let's say if we called it two pay-per-views later, and what's that going to be? I don't know, 8 or 9 weeks, something roughly something like that. If I'm in the peak of physical fitness, which hopefully I will be for the George St. Pierre fight, I'll take a little time off. I'll go on a holiday with my family. I'm not going to get a big payday from the UFC and disappear and think, oh my God, I'm rich, and disappear.
Yeah.
I've been a part of the UFC for a long time, and I've been compensated fairly well, and we live a decent life, so I could go on holiday anytime I want. I'll take a little time, a little vacation with the family because it will be summer, hopefully, and then I'll ease back into the training, and I'll keep the momentum going. I'll keep the wrestling practice, the jiu-jitsu, and all the work that I did for the GSP fight. I'll keep that going. I'll keep it fresh in my mind, and then fight Yoel. That would be the perfect scenario. Of course, unless I get injured, which I don't think I will.